Hello there. So I had the chance to go to the movie theaters for like the first time in over a year, and I went with the family to go see Guardians Volume 3. Okay, so with what has been going on with Marvel, I've been, not expecting much. With what has been going on with Disney, I should say, as a whole, I was not expecting much. Their Marvel is down the drain. Star Wars has been killed, and they're literally doing, they're presenting its corpse around to try and just keep itself alive. They just destroyed Indiana Jones again. I mean, how is that possible? So it's just like, I don't expect much. So when I went to go see this movie, again, I wasn't expecting much. And it was actually pretty good. I actually did enjoy it. The music, of course, is iconic. However, unlike the first two, they don't seem to land as well as they did in the first one, especially. The first one, the music is iconic. It just fit the tone, the fact that it was fun, upbeat music, and it just really did work with the type of tone they were going for. The second one, it didn't really mesh, and the third one's completely off, because it's like each one goes darker and darker. The first one just complete comedy. The second one is basically the father who's a deadbeat human being, and the third one is just an animal who's being tortured. And so it gets darker and darker and darker, and the music just doesn't fit. It's more off tone. And here it's even more so, because they give James Gunn way too much freedom after firing him and then bringing him back because they realized they couldn't do it without him, for firing him for a 20-year-old tweet. Yeah, it's just it's kind of ridiculous. So they gave him all the reins, and it's like there was no one there to basically rein him in, going like, oh, this hour you have in here where they're going to this this living planet or whatever it is, this planet, it serves no purpose. It's there for jokes. It's there for comedic relief, which doesn't land because like every so often they go do a flashback and it's animals being tormented. And then they go to a joke in like the present, and it just didn't land well, or it's just very whiplash-like. And I think that was the biggest issue there. It was just primarily that. However, I gotta say, with Disney with everything basically trying to make villains as relatable as, like, villains are the new good guys, because apparently being evil, trying to kill everybody, there has to be some kind of sound reason for it. And I enjoy that. I enjoy where there's some weird, twisted mindset as to why they're doing it, because they've been broken and they want to do it. However, making it so where the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys, like what they did with the Peter Pan, they made Hook the sympathetic character, and Pan is just this annoying person that you want. He is the bad guy. They made Pan the bad guy. So here you literally have, it's the High Evolutionary, and he wants to be God. One of the best lines in the film is like, there is no God. That's why I stepped in. It was one of the best lines in the film, because it basically encapsulates, like, basically what I saw in that moment was a man who had sought out to try and create creative life, like a life that could think for themselves. And if you look at the story, Rocket is the thing he's fixated on. Why? Because everything else he has created, everything they know, he had programmed into him. The only one who was able to create and invent on their own was Rocket. So he is trying to capture Rocket, figure out why he works, why Rocket, this mutilated husk of a creature, turned out to be the only successful creation, successful life form with intelligence he had created. Everyone else, it was programmed into them, which is why he's so fixated on getting Rocket back. And I like that. I like the fact that his whole goal is to be God. And his proof of the ability of being able to be God is Rocket, which was a complete mistake, which is why he's so fixated on getting him back, which why he literally destroys his own empire, kind of, sort of, not really, but he's the bad guy, so he loses everything. Just fixated on Rocket. He can't make a new Rocket. It was a complete fluke, and he wanted to figure out what happened. Why is it Rocket is the only creation he has ever made that had a will to create, that was able to create something out of nothing, was be able to do more than what he was programmed into him, especially when he's trying to create a utopia. He wants people to be creative, wants people to create for themselves. And yeah, he's outright evil. He'll create and then destroy them because they don't meet his mold of perfection. And why animals being transformed into humanoid creatures was his ideal of perfection, but I don't know. And I kind of find it funny that it was Rocket that immediately thought of the idea of how it worked, which basically got him fixated on it. He created this machine, and Rocket looks at it and goes like, yeah, you just need to do this. It's concentrating. It's degrading some. I was just like, what the heck? But it got the high evolutionary fixated on him, which honestly, I can see that aspect, the whole fixation on that, because he wants to be God. But his annoyance is the fact that everything, all his creations know, he programmed into them to know. So the fact that the only one that ever really had a mind of his own ran away and he thought died, and he's trying to get him back. It added so much more to it for me, and you don't learn that till the very end. So it's a nice little thing that you realize that this guy has tried so hard to recreate or recapture what he created with Rocket. Rocket is 1 in a million, 1 in a billion with how many creatures he's created, and the fact that like what Rocket does to him. I mean, it's a well-rounded story. It's dark story, and it's just the whiplash of the tones, which doesn't really fit well, and the music that's so everywhere, just everywhere. Like at the very end, there's this dance sequence that happens because they finally get to the 2000s music, and it just feels forced. It felt like it was thrown there, which no, it didn't belong there. But honestly, I liked how all the Guardians were fighting with each other. Nobody really got along. They were all not understanding one another. The team dynamic was gone. Their leader, who was the heart of the group, had lost his soul, which was Gamora. She's dead and gone. The one he loved is dead and gone. There's a new one there, which has refused to acknowledge him because she's still stuck in the fact that Thanos is number one. Nebula is literally in the arc that Gamora was in the second movie, deeply in love with Peter. But it's just, sadly, Peter's mindset is so focused on Gamora because, like, they mention it. This sounds more like Nebula than it does like me. And then you think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, Nebula was going through her arc of changing her ways in Infinity War. That's where it started for her. That is where it was at. So in Infinity War, she was in that mindset of what Gamora was in the first movie. Gamora was wanting to get out, wanting to do better. In Infinity War, halfway through, that's where Nebula switches over, right? That's where Nebula switches over. And then at this point in time, she's already in that mindset. And if Gamora wasn't there, you could tell that there would be a chance for Peter and Nebula, because Nebula takes care of Peter. Nebula apparently has some kind of attachment with Peter, sees him as more than just a friend, and cares for him. So the fact that he doesn't reciprocate that, I had to think of the word, reciprocate it, she gets more angry and aggressive towards the rest of the team, starts attacking, lashing out at everyone else because she finally feels something which she's never felt before and has an attachment to this person. But she can't even accept it. Even when he tries to reach out, it's like, you have nice eyes. They're nice and black. It's just like, my father gave me these eyes. He tore out my other ones as a punishment. Just like, whoa, well, he chose some really nice eyes. Like, that was just, ew. Just, that was very bad, relationship type thing. But it was a good film. It was a good film. Some of the jokes landed. Some of them just, they all would have landed if it wasn't for the fact that you're watching an animal be tortured in some scenes, and then it jumps to a joke. Or sometimes you're laughing, and then it jumps to the animal being dissected, and then it's just like immediately, why was I laughing at that? Your body tries to fluctuate in emotions quite a bit. It's a roller coaster ride of emotion. of either disgust or horror or comedy or bright colors, music, all that stuff really just makes this huge confusion of what the story's really about. But the movie in the end is actually a good film. It actually is enjoyable. The fact that you need to watch some other stuff in order to get more of the story, because the fact that they were in nowhere creating a base, I have no clue where that came from. Honestly, I don't. I didn't watch Thor, and I didn't watch the Christmas special. I already knew Mantis was his sister, mainly because in the comics, and the fact that they had a huge, like when they showed that was the history of his father sleeping with every single race, and they had Mantis's parents in there too. I kind of assumed that Mantis would be his sibling. So the only ones he would basically sacrifice were the males that he would try to, incorporate himself into. The males. So the Mantis was a daughter. He wasn't going to try to take over his daughter, so he kept his daughter around to help out. I mean, that's the way I always assumed it. So it's just like all these little things. It's a good movie. It's definitely a good movie. Definitely was worth a watch. Definitely a good homage to the end, to ending a franchise. The fact that it's a team dynamic falling apart, nobody's getting along, and at the very end they realize that they lost their soul. Like Peter lost his soul, which was Gamora. So he's the heart of the group, and since he's out, he has to go. He has to go. And then a few of the others have to basically break apart and go to different tasks. It seems like Nebula is going to be basically the mayor of nowhere. There's so many little things that just happen at the very end that just seem to make it seem more whole than anything. And of course, Groot speaks for the first time, and you actually understand what he's saying because we've been around long enough to know what he says. But yeah, I've been speaking about this for a while. It's definitely worth a watch. The High Evolutionary was a nice change of pace for a villain, someone who's so fixated on being a god that his one creation of life that actually was creative, he wanted back, and to figure out what he did that made it work. So thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles.